For this first assignment, you're going to be demonstrating your understanding of the 7 elements of art. So you're going to be making a progressive drawing that is going to start as a line, and then you're going to add an element of art to each step of this drawing. So you kind of want to envision what it is you want the final drawing to look like. Think of an object that you know how to draw from memory, or maybe it's something that you make up, that can demonstrate form so it looks three-dimensional. Consider the texture that's on the surface, what color can be added to it, because that might be the best way to go about thinking about this assignment. So when I think of texture, I thought of a texture that was spiky, and I thought about a cactus in a desert setting. So with that in mind, I'm going to think about how I can start to draw a cactus with just a line. The first box in pencil says draw a portion of a line that's a continuous mark made by a moving point. So this might become the beginning of my cactus. Then in step 2, I'm going to repeat the same drawing. So I'm going to start out by drawing something similar. But now it says connect the ends of your lines together to enclose the area to make a shape. So now I'm going to add the rest of my drawing. That is an enclosed area to make a shape. So now I've got my cactus formed. Step 3 says repeat step 2 and now add highlights and shadows on the surface and under the object by changing your hand pressure to create value. Value is the lightness or the darkness of the color. So I'm going to try and draw this similarly, and that's okay if it's not identical to the first time, but try to get it close. And now I'm going to add shading or shadows underneath. So this might be what my shadow starts to look like for the ground. And then I want to add some shading on the surface where I see some shadows on an edge to imply there's a light source. So when I add highlights and shadows, that helps make this flat shape become three-dimensional to show form, and then value is in the shading also. Okay, step 3 says repeat, or step 4 says to repeat step 3, that's a typo, but now add texture to the surface to demonstrate the way it feels. So I'm going to repeat this process. Okay, I'm going to get my shadow on the ground because everything I drew in the previous box should still be visible. Okay, now I'm going to do a little bit of shading on the surface to get my value. All right, now I'm going to start to add my texture. So for this, it's a cactus. It's going to have spikes on it. Okay, now step number 5 says to repeat what you drew in step number 4, but this time you're going to add color to the surface. So maybe I switch to the color that I'm going to use to draw the object itself. So I'm going to switch to a green because I want a green cactus. Then I can show value by changing my hand pressure, and that can also be done with the color itself. But I am going to use my gray to do the shadow on the ground. And then I'm going to start to fill in the rest of my object with color. I can layer colors together. And now I'm going to add my texture again. So maybe I switch to a darker green to start to add the texture of my cactus spikes. Okay, the last box says Repeat the previous box, but now create a setting around the object to layer the drawing to show foreground, middle ground, and background, which creates space. So you cannot leave an empty white background around your drawing. In order to create space, you are welcome to adjust the size of your drawing. You might need to make the object smaller to be able to fit other things around the drawing, or you might lower the drawing so you have space above it. It just kind of depends on the perspective you want to create. So I'm going to zoom in on my cactus. So I'm going to draw it larger and at the bottom. So it implies that I'm closer to this cactus because I'm going to give myself more space in the background behind it to draw another cactus and kind of the rest of the ground. Maybe there is like a mountain off in the distance. So now I'm changing my hand pressure and I'm layering to start to show value. I'm still going to put a shadow on the ground underneath. And then I'm going to get my texture back on the surface. Okay, now I need to develop the rest of the space behind it. So I might draw what looks like where the sky meets the ground, and maybe I've got some overlap there. And then maybe I have a smaller cactus that's farther away, because when you play with size makes objects appear closer or far away. If you draw things smaller, they're going to appear farther off in the distance. And I'm still going to use all the same elements of art: line, shape, form, value, texture, color, space, even with the new objects that I add. I'm going to get some shadows on the ground. Okay, and then maybe I add a cactus way off in the distance where I can't really see all the detail because it's so far away. So maybe that is just kind of like a silhouette or a solid color of the object itself, because I can't see all those details from so far away. Then I'm going to come back in and continue to add color to my background. Think about craftsmanship. Think about how neatly you're coloring. Are you coloring in the same direction? Are your lines nice and blended? Show me your best effort and creativity with your coloring. You are welcome to blend colors and create new colors by mixing them together. So this final drawing should demonstrate all 7 elements of art as one element turns into another element, where the drawing becomes progressively more complex to show all 7 elements of art. And then if I need to, if my design doesn't stand out anymore once I've got my background in there, if I need to, I can come back and layer again. So now I'm going to push a little harder around the outer edge to redefine the edge of my cactus so I can see those details even better. So now that cactus just came to the surface. I'm going to do the same thing with this edge. I'm going to outline, pressing harder, adding more color, more value, more texture. So my main object is easier to see. I'm going to add some yellow in here. Give it a little more dimension and variety. And then lastly, I'm going to look at my sky and decide what time of day it is. Is it a sunset? Is it a sunrise? Is it a blue sky? If you're in an outdoor setting, think about what your sky or time of day is. If it's indoors, think about how you color your walls. Paint those walls, don't leave them plain white.